Today on Legally Asked, Danny Masterson sentenced to 30 years to life in prison as Ashton Kutcher and Mila write character letters ahead of his conviction. Plus, Kevin Costner's ex is forced to pay up as Brooklyn Beckham and Nikola settle their wedding planner drama, and Erika Jayne is asking for money for her diamond studs. We got that plus so much more on today's Legally Asked. Hey guys, Christina Garibaldi here with Neama Rahmani, President and CEO of West Coast Trial Lawyers. Hi Neama, how are you?
Hi Christina, how's it going?
Good. Big news this week. Of course, everybody is talking about Danny Masterson and his trial, and it seems like his legal team intends to appeal his 30-year sentence following his sexual assault conviction. So attorney Sean Hawley spoke to reporters following his hearing, alleging that a top team of appellate lawyers found a number of significant evidentiary and constitutional issues transcripts from the trial. So she argued that her client did not commit the crimes for which he has been convicted, asserting that she and a team of the best and brightest appellate lawyers are confident that these convictions will be overturned. Now, he was charged with 3 counts of rape by force or fear in June of 2020, 3 years after initially being accused of sexual assault by multiple women. Like I said, he was just sentenced to 30 years to life in prison. So how likely is it that he will win an appeal? I know we've talked about appeals in the past, and it is very hard to win on appeal, but what are his chances?
Christina, it is very hard to win on appeal, and I don't expect Danny Masterson to win. And the reason is this. His attorney said that he didn't do it, but you generally can't appeal a jury verdict when it's a question of fact. So do they believe Danny Masterson? Do they believe the victims? And in this particular case, they believe 2 of the victims. And under California law, whenever there's multiple victims and it's a violent sex crime, those sentences have to run consecutively, which means back to back. And that's why we had 2 15-year sentences, or Danny Masterson is going to do at least 30 years in California state prison.
Mm-hmm. And when they say like 30 years to life, does that just mean life expectancy, or is that like he could spend more than 30 years in jail?
Well, he's probably going to get out at that 30-year mark, depending on the parole board and so forth. Whenever there's a span like that, the judge has discretion to go higher. That means sentence Danny Masterson up to life. In this particular case, the judge gave really the minimum that could have been imposed in this case. I know the defense asked for concurrent time. That means at the same time they asked for 15 years, but it was something that was outside the judge's control.
So were you not surprised that it was 30 years? Did you think that this was a lot? Did you think that it was, a little bit of time, or was it right kind of spot on?
Well, I wasn't surprised it was 30 years because that's probably the least amount that Masterson could have gotten. If there were a conviction with just respect to one victim, it may have been a 15-year sentence, or with respect to all 3, he might have been facing 45 years. But given his lack of criminal history, the fact that the case mistrialed the first time, I thought a 30-year sentence was appropriate in this case.
If he pled guilty, would the time have been considerably less?
There's a possibility that he could have worked out some sort of deal, maybe plead to 1 count instead of 2 or 3, go for a 15-year sentence. But I think his defense was emboldened by the first case, which ended up in a mistrial. These types of cases can be hard to prosecute because sometimes there's not really a whole lot of evidence aside from the victim's word. And whenever there's not a contemporaneous report, it makes it more challenging. In this case, I think the district attorney did a very good job pointing the finger at Scientology and saying the reason the victims didn't come forward was because the church encouraged them to go through their process. So the second time around, I think the prosecution got a little bit ahead of the defense, and that's why they were able to secure those guilty verdicts.
All right. Well, this story also got in relation to Danny Masterson. So this story got a lot of pickup. Ashton Kutcher and Mila explained why they wrote letters in support of their former co-star prior to his conviction. So they made headlines after it was reported that they penned letters to the judge ahead of his court date. And Ashton explained that they wrote the letters at the request of Danny's family. Mila added that their messages were not written to question the legitimacy of the judicial system or the validity of the jury's ruling. He called Now, Ashton called Danny a role model, noting that he did not fall into the typical Hollywood life of drugs. Mila also praised Danny's exceptional character in her character letter. And like we said, he has denied the rape allegations, this going back to 2017. So this has been they've been getting a lot of backlash. They spoke out on Instagram about why they did that. But why are character letters important, and do judges really take them into consideration?
Well, Christina, judges do look at those letters as well as any testimony that comes out at sentencing. And what's more powerful than a rape victim's testimony? So in this particular case, I understand that Danny Masterson was a friend and former colleague of Ashton and Mila, but I think this was a mistake. Now he's a convicted rapist. And for someone especially like Ashton Kutcher, who's really gone out and supported victims of sex trafficking and so forth, I think this was disappointing. I do give them credit, though. Sometimes in Hollywood, celebrities will double down on their mistakes. And I think after they realized that this was a mistake, this is something that we should not have done, they came out and they apologized for what they did, which is certainly better than, continuing along this path. I think really, especially after a jury has returned a verdict and believe not only one, but two victims unanimously beyond a reasonable doubt. I think you need to, give that jury verdict the really respect it deserves.
Right. Do you think that they ever thought that these letters would be made public? And is that common that these character letters are sent out to the public if people ask for them?
Well, Christina, most court documents are public filings unless they're filed under seal. So character letters are no exception. So I don't know what type of legal advice they were getting, but Ashton and Mila should have known that anything they submit to the court is not going to be sealed. It's going to be accessible to the public.
Yeah. Do you think that they probably thought that he wouldn't be charged in this crime then, maybe?
Potentially. And, I understand the position they're in. This is someone that they've known for a long time and someone that they worked with for many years. But, at the end of the day, he's now a convicted felon. And it doesn't matter if someone's your friend. You're really shaming those victims by, submitting letters like that. And I understand the position that they're in, but really, you have someone that now has really, perpetuated this harm to these poor victims and denied it. And now, you're re-victimizing them by submitting a letter like this. I do think it was a mistake for both a legal and a PR perspective.
All right. Another week, another story about Christine Baumgartner and Kevin Costner. But now she is actually being forced to pay his legal fees. She must pay nearly $14,000 of his attorney fees, and the funds will cover how much Kevin has spent in the ex's back and forth about their prenuptial agreement. She initially paid her lawyer retainer with funds made available to Christine by Kevin and will owe approximately $114,000 in additional fees accrued before a settlement is reached. Now, Kevin is now slamming her for requests to foot her bill after scoring a victory in the child support battle. So he anticipates that she will demand more fees and costs in excess of about $400,000. He has already paid for her fees and her costs in the proceeding, and he's paying for her rental, which she just moved into. Now, he has been very unhappy that his estranged wife is seeking what he believes an exorbitant amount of child support. We know that she is now getting about $60,000 a month, a lot less than what she originally wanted, but she also received a gift from her boyfriend as well, a loan that she has given to herself and to her mother. So it seems like she's kind of asking for money a little bit all over the place. But are you surprised that she is now going to have to pay his legal fees?
So, Christina, under California law, whenever you have one spouse who's working and one who's not, the working spouse actually has to pay for the attorney fees of the non-working spouse and in any type of divorce. So I'm not surprised that Kevin has had to pay her legal fees. But what happens is if the court finds that there was no good cause for the motion, or if the prenuptial agreement says that the prevailing party gets his or her attorney fees, then Christine actually has to pay for Kevin's legal fees. And that's what happened here. She litigated the prenup. She lost. So even though Kevin's paying her legal fees, Christine actually needs to personally reimburse Kevin for the amount of time his own lawyers spent litigating this issue.
Mm-hmm. And then, we said that she was forced to admit at her deposition that her brother recently gave her $80,000. Her boyfriend recently gave her $20,000. I mean, how is that going to kind of be a factor in their upcoming trial about their prenup agreement?
So one of the ways that you can get around a prenup is to say that the financial disclosures were inadequate. What the judge wants to find, if he or she's going to say that this prenup is valid, is that Kevin disclosed all of his assets, all of his income. She knew exactly what she was getting herself to. And that even continues through this separation process. Obviously, Kevin Costner saying, he's not making as much money. He's not on Yellowstone anymore. And what he's saying is that really Christine, she's actually getting income and gifts and loans from other sources that she's not disclosing. Sometimes in litigation, the best defense is a good offense. And I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah. So it seems like Kevin definitely, we talked about this last week, how he has the upper hand, at least with the child support. But it seems like overall, this is going to maybe be a losing battle for Christine.
I think so. Last week, we talked about Christine maybe just walking away from this, and she continues to lose. And not only is she losing now, she's having to pay Kevin's legal fees. So it's really one defeat after another. I know sometimes these divorce proceedings can be very messy. We cover them every week here on Legally Us, but you really have to have some basis really or good faith to litigate the issues. And I think, if Christine really keeps going down this path, she's going to find herself not only losing, but continuing to pay Kevin's legal fees.
On to Brooklyn Beckham and wife Nikola Peltz. We talked about this a really long time ago, but they have settled the lawsuit brought against them by wedding planners after their April 2022 wedding. So Ariana and Nicole, these are two wedding planners from Plan Design Events, said in a statement to People magazine, the parties believe that this contract dispute between Nelson Peltz and Plan Design should be resolved on the terms agreed. As part of the settlement, PDE will make a donation in the name of Nikola and Brooklyn to the CARE Ukraine Crisis Fund. The outlet reports that both the initial and counterclaims have been dismissed with prejudice. So just a little backstory. In December of 2022, her father, Nikola's father, Nelson, filed a lawsuit against the wedding planners, alleging that they refused to refund the nearly $160,000 deposit he paid them for his daughter's wedding. So in the suit, he claimed that the wedding planners could not handle the expectations of the star-studded guest list, which included about 500 people, and people were traveling from all over the world. Well, they fired back in a countersuit, claiming that against the Peltz families, including Nikola's mom, alleging that they made difficult demands with short notice and had poor communication skills. So are we surprised about the outcome of this case, and who kind of came out on top here?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, the wedding's over, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to litigate it. But I mean, we know whether it's the bride or the groom or their families, weddings can be very emotional situations. So, clearly post-wedding, the families were not happy with the wedding planners. So those lawsuits started flying back and forth. But I'm not surprised that the case settled. Doesn't make sense to continue to litigate this years later. But I do think that it was Brooklyn and Nikola who came out ahead of this. And, they were wise from a PR perspective. Whatever settlement they got, they donated to charity. They're obviously very well off financially. So I think they were the winners in this case.
Definitely. Do you think that they probably had to make a sizable donation, or do you think more of this was just proving the wedding planners wrong?
I think it was a little bit more the latter, just sending a message. The wedding planners probably wanted to get paid whatever outstanding amount was owed. And they said, well, no, we're not going to pay you. You didn't do your job. So we're going to file a lawsuit. I think this was clearly more about the principle than actually any amount of money. So whatever money they did get was donated to charity. And I think that was the right thing to do here.
Definitely. All right. This Erika Jayne, we've been talking about her diamond earrings for a very long time, but it seems like, so they were $750,000 that her ex-husband or estranged husband, Tom Girardi, had gifted her. So even though the diamond studs were sold off for a price of only $250,000 to attorney Ronald Richards' wife, and so Erika recently won an appeal to have the court further investigate whether the earrings were actually part of Tom's estate and thus lawfully confiscated from her to go toward repaying his victim. So as evidence for that continues to be gathered, Ronald is now stating that Erika is requesting to be paid for the earrings. She has asked the courts to rule that Tom's bankruptcy trustees pay her back for the diamond earrings. He claims that this may be part of a motive with this request is to also try to put off the trial for the $25 million lawsuit against her, and she's trying to tie up the courts. So will Erika get money for these earrings, and why is she requesting this?
It's possible, but it's unlikely. So the way this works is whenever something is the proceeds of a legal activity, it can be seized by the government. So it doesn't matter if you use drug money to buy a car. I mean, there's no different. If you steal money from clients and you use that to buy a gift, even if it's for your wife, that can be traced back and the government can get that back. So what happened here, and we all saw when Tom Girardi filed bankruptcy, his entire estate was put up for auction. You could buy furniture from his office, memorabilia. And obviously one of the issues was these very famous diamond earrings. So they were put up for auction. So if Erika Jayne can prove that they weren't the proceeds of legal activity, that doesn't get her all the way. There's something that's called a bona fide purchaser. If someone buys something in good faith at an auction or elsewhere, they may be protected. So, not only does Erika Jayne have to prove that really it was from some other source of funds, not stolen clients or something that was fraudulent, but that, the purchaser wasn't a good faith purchaser. So I don't think she's going to win. But as we have seen in Tom Girardi's criminal case, they're going to litigate these cases at every turn. So it doesn't matter whether it's the, competency issue in the criminal case or all the issues in the civil case. I'm not surprised to see this, but I don't expect Erika Jayne to win here.
Sorry, Erika. I'm not going to get the money back for your earrings. All right. Well, Neama, thank you so much. As always, a lot of very interesting cases going on this week. And thank you so much for breaking it all down, as always.
Thanks, Christina. I'll see you next week.
See you next week. For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.